Hey, don't listen to me, but most wealth building advice doesn't actually work for normal people. And I don't mean the scammy stuff. I'm talking about the good, responsible, mainstream advice everyone repeats. I tried all of it: the budgeting hacks, the saving tricks, the side hustles, the cut out your Starbucks lectures. None of it moved the needle. Instead, something completely different happened. And it changed everything I thought I knew about money. When I first started taking wealth seriously, I did what everyone else does. I Googled, I watched videos, I read the books, and I tried to follow the right advice. You know the usual lines: track your spending, cut your expenses, work harder, start a side hustle, save more. And I genuinely gave it a real shot. I sacrificed, I hustled, I worked more hours than I want to admit. And after all of that, my life didn't get better, it just got smaller. I wasn't building wealth, I was building frustration. That's when I realized something I really didn't want to admit. The advice everyone gives was never designed for people living a normal life. And once I understood why it wasn't working for me, everything finally clicked. Part 1: The myth of just budget better. Here's the first big myth: just track your spending, cut back, and stick to a budget. That's how you build wealth. It sounds responsible, but budgeting doesn't build wealth. Budgeting controls cash flow. It shrinks your life. It doesn't expand it. Most normal people already know how to spend less. Most people already feel guilty when they buy things. Most people already cut back where they can. But here's the real problem: you can't budget your way out of an income ceiling. And you definitely can't budget your way to financial freedom. Budgeting without growth is basically surviving with better spreadsheets. I remember the moment it hit me. I was cutting everything, and instead of feeling empowered, I felt smaller, more restricted, almost suffocated. Because budgeting doesn't address the real issue. Your life is too small for the goals you actually have. Budgeting is maintenance. Wealth building is expansion. They're not the same thing. Part 2: The myth of side hustle salvation. This next myth burned me out harder than anything else. Just work harder, start a side hustle, push more hours. The idea is that if you grind hard enough, you'll get ahead. But normal people aren't starting from a place of infinite energy. Most people are already overwhelmed. Adding a second job, because that's really what a side hustle is, doesn't create freedom. It creates exhaustion. Side hustles require a complete identity change. Suddenly you're a business owner, a salesperson, a marketer, a closer. And if none of those roles fit your personality, your strengths, or your life, you're going to burn out incredibly fast. Here's the part nobody says out loud: you cannot build freedom by stacking more weight on a life that's already at capacity. And even if you could force yourself to succeed, you still have to ask the uncomfortable question: would I even want the life this hustle creates? Most people never ask that. Because hustle culture isn't trying to build freedom. It's trying to build endless grinding. There's nothing wrong with hustling, but there's something very wrong with forcing yourself into a lifestyle you're not built for. Part 3: The myth of just save more. This one sounds harmless. Save more money. That's the path to wealth. Saving is important. Saving gives you stability and protection. But saving alone doesn't build wealth. Saving without investing turns life into a treadmill. You're moving, but you're not actually going anywhere. Inflation slowly eats away at every dollar you save. When I was deep into super saver mode, I really thought I was doing the right thing. I felt disciplined. I felt responsible. But my savings didn't grow. My stress didn't shrink. My goals didn't move any closer. Because I was playing defense, not offense. Saving is the seatbelt. Investing is the engine. You need both, but only one of them moves the car. Part 4: The myth of the standard path. Here's where things get interesting. Most mainstream advice assumes one huge thing. It assumes you've already figured out your career. It assumes you love what you do. It assumes your job has growth potential. It assumes you have enough emotional bandwidth to build around it. It assumes your income can scale. And if you haven't figured out your career, guess what the advice tells you? Start a side hustle, turn it into a career, build a business. Basically, replace the biggest decision of your life with a shortcut. The advice skips over the most important question: What do you actually want to do with the majority of your time? Your career shapes your identity, your stress levels, your confidence, your income, your lifestyle, everything. And yet the mainstream path reduces your entire life to budget more, work harder, start a side hustle, save money, invest the leftovers. That's not a plan. That's a template. And it completely ignores the reality that normal people have. Kids, aging parents, health issues, burnout, limited time and energy, emotional highs and lows, responsibilities, messy, complicated lives. Any advice that doesn't account for real life isn't advice. It's pressure. It didn't work for me because it wasn't built for anyone who isn't living some perfect, optimized, frictionless existence. Part 5. The shift. What actually works for you? This is where the real breakthrough happens. When you stop forcing the mainstream path, you finally start asking the real question. What actually works for me? Most people never reach this point. They keep following advice that doesn't match their personality, energy, or values. But once you understand your system, how you work, things finally click. Your financial path has to match your personality, your limitations, your emotional bandwidth, your schedule, your values, how much chaos you can tolerate, and how you want to feel every day. Once you understand that, then and only then, you can finally define what you actually want from your financial life. Maybe you want simplicity, maybe slow, steady stability, maybe quiet growth, maybe income without pressure, maybe wealth without sacrificing your peace. Once you know your real goal, you can ignore all the advice that never worked for you in the first place. Because the truth is, most people aren't failing because they're doing things wrong. They're failing because they're following advice that wasn't made for them. Your success begins the moment you stop living someone else's blueprint. The truth is, most wealth building advice sounds good, but it wasn't designed for people living real, messy, everyday lives. When I finally stopped trying to squeeze myself into advice that didn't fit, everything became clearer. I didn't need to work harder. I needed to work in the right direction. And that's when everything changed. If this made you rethink the advice you've been following, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments. What's the one piece of financial advice that never worked for you? Your answer might actually help someone else figure out their next step. And if you're sitting there thinking, okay, if the standard advice doesn't work, then what does? I get it. That was the same question that pushed me into years of trial and error. Because once I stepped away from the mainstream path, I tried everything. Side hustles, online businesses, flipping stuff, trading. And I failed every single one. But those failures led to the biggest breakthrough of my financial life. If you want to know what I discovered on the other side of all those failed hustles, watch the next video. It connects directly to everything we just talked about.